I'm Jess Simmonds, and I currently teach in Ysgol Gynradd Dolau in Llanharan, or a dual entry primary school. I studied on the Welsh New Year course last year, and I went back to school with a passion to help develop Welsh oracy skills across the school. I've been really lucky to have support from both departments. So I began by sharing language pedagogy with the schools. So far, we have our main professional development target this year for all teaching staff was to develop Welsh oracy in the classroom. This has been really beneficial, as it's been a big focus for everybody, and they've become quite engaged and enthused by developing their understanding, and a lot of teachers have grown in confidence in teaching Welsh through the support that we've been able to provide to them. At the beginning of the year, I started with a training session for all staff, and that included teaching assistants as well, where I provided them with a small bank of games which they could use within the classroom. I didn't want to overwhelm them, because I find it sometimes if you give people too much, they find it too much to implement then. But yeah, so we started with giving them a bank of games, and they would then be incorporating them into Welsh drilling sessions every day. So we do 15 to 20 minutes Welsh drilling every day within our classrooms. We've also monitored Welsh drilling sessions. So we went in and we observed teachers teaching doing their drilling sessions with the children in the autumn term. And in the summer term, we've actually listened to learners as well as in the autumn term, because we wanted to measure the progress and see if what we've been doing was working and was having an impact. One of the main things I shared with them to start with was sentence builders. You've seen a lot of these this evening already, but they are really beneficial in the classroom. And I think the children, as soon as they get to know them and they know how to use them, they become really important, and they can be used for lots of different things. And the teachers, I think it gives the teachers a little bit of confidence who haven't got the skill, maybe the same skill level in Welsh, to use that as well. The teachers in the Welsh department initially, they were a bit like, oh, but you're giving them the sentences, but now they've got on board with it. They understand how beneficial they can be, not just to support all children, but to scaffold the lower retaining children within the class. I shared some games with them as well then. So I tried to make it so that they weren't necessarily translation games, but they were games that enabled them to drill the Welsh properly. We found that a lot of our children came from English speaking homes, and in the pandemic, especially children in the Welsh department, they lost a lot of their Welsh, because even though we were trying our best, with their parents not being able to speak it and them not seeing their friends and things like that, we really felt that they needed help to develop and support their oracy skills. So this is a great one. The kids in the Welsh department and the English department love playing this. It's just an example of Guess Who. It's really simple, but they absolutely love it. And you can either do it on the screen as a whole class or print them off on boards, and they will cross off then everything, and it's getting them to recycle their questions continuously and practicing the yeses and nos, because we find this is a real big struggle with children remembering the different ways to answer yes and no in Welsh. So this is something they've used a lot of, games which incorporate question and answer, and as you'll see from the listening to learners at the end, that there's been a vast improvement now. We use a lot of pictures within the classroom, so to drill the Welsh language. So for example, in this one, they're drilling the question, ydy un or ydy hi'n mwynhau rhywbeth. So they would constantly be recycling the same question, and then they'd obviously say ydy or nac ydy, and then they'd be practicing the negative and the positive sentences. And this is something we found that can be used. A lot of the resources can be transferred between both departments. You may be using it a bit in Key Stage 2 in the English department, but you can also share that resource So we have a bank of resources on our Google Drive, and those resources may be used from the Welsh department, but lower down, or with a support group that needs a little bit of extra interventions on certain things. And then there's another one, a board game to help practice the verbs in Welsh. And this is something we find in writing, that if the children aren't very confident with their verbs, especially in the Welsh department, they find it really difficult with especially writing in the past tense. So this is something that this is an example of one of the games that they would play to do that as well. Then we've got ping pong, which is a really popular one. This is an example of one of the teachers in the Welsh department who's made it so that it's not necessarily translating. They're doing the oes gen ti and then oes gen I ddim. So they've really got on board with it, the teachers and staff as well, and they're excited, and the kids are all excited. Their attitudes have changed totally. They're like, oh, can we do Welsh drilling? When are we doing Welsh drilling? What, can we play this game today? Can we play that game? So it's nice to see, and it's nice to hear as well. Then this is a lovely game. Again, one of the teachers made himself. It's a bit so basically you have to, children choose the sentences, they read the sentences out, and then they click on the number, and then the number shows, I don't know if it's going to work on this one because it's actually a PowerPoint, but for example, they've got to try and gain as many points as possible to win the game. It's great to play in small groups or in partners. So that's a really good one too. Oh, it's going to make me go through the whole thing. It was on PowerPoint, that's why it's not working. And then I'd like to talk about how we've incorporated the Welsh drilling to link to cross-curricular lessons, especially in the English department. We found this has worked really well. The Welsh department are coming on board with this, but I think it's important. You have to plan very far in advance in order to know exactly what patterns you're going to need to drill to get to your end product. So this half term, we've been in about World War II in year 3, and they've absolutely loved it. So we learned about evacuees, then we in English, and we did that. So then we transferred some of the stuff we were doing over to Welsh. So I drilled with them different sentence patterns. We'd looked at ASE, we'd recapped talking about ourselves, because they were going to, in the end project was to write a postcard to their mum and dad pretending to be an evacuee, and we're going to walk up to the post boxes next week and post them off back to their mums and dads. So they're pretending, well, not their mums, they keep reminding me because their dad would have been at war, but yeah, so we're going to post them off. So they're really excited, and it's been a really great build up, and it's shown that all the drilling has worked, and they can remember those patterns, and they can put it into something. So yeah, my drilling would be like drilling the different things that I want them to end up in putting into their postcards. We drilled different people you may have been with. Then we linked it back to some of our help ahead use, like the help ahead use sessions and the stuff we've covered there. So we talked about, we can use KSE to tell about food that we've had, and then we linked it to maybe we can use it now then to the time, what kind of time we had. So they use this sentence builder to help them write their postcards. And we played lots of games. They love playing mind reader. And that really does engage every child in the class. Every child wants to answer. Every child wants to join in. Then we played Find Your Partner. We played Find Your Partner, and they love this when it gets them up, it gets them moving, gets them asking and answering the questions again and again and again. We've played bingo. We've done a reading comprehension, sentence puzzles, and then they wrote their own diary postcard. And then that's obviously they're not quite finished yet. They're taking their time. There's a couple of them still left to finish, and that's obviously what we're going to post off to them, their mums and dads at the end of next week. And this is the scaffold I gave some of my lower ability children who really struggled to write in English. However, because we drilled it so much, straight away they knew exactly what to put into the gaps. The words were familiar to them, and they really struggled reading and writing in English. And it's just lovely to see that you can make Welsh so accessible to anyone, if you've got the right like resources there. And then this is another example. This is actually something I made whilst I was on the course, but it's using Jamboard, and I used it as in one of my microdeskies on the course, but when I took it back to school, one of the teachers in the Welsh department has used it as well. I don't know, can you see Jamboard now? So it was a great activity. The children loved it, and it got them to be given their own opinion about what they think would float and what they think would sink. And then they were making their own predictions, so they could move the different objects into the different bowls. And yeah, the teacher said that it was really beneficial. Lots of children who like struggle with writing their predictions down, like they were orally saying them really confidently, and then obviously there was evidence there, and they didn't really think they'd done any work. They just thought it was something a bit fun and exciting to do. So yeah, that was that. And then so the impact it's had in school with us, so it's improved the teachers' understanding. A lot of the teachers in the Welsh department have said that just because they can speak Welsh, it doesn't mean they understand how to teach it as a language. And I think that's really, like, that was really important to hear, that they were, you know, they knew the language, but the intricacies of teaching it and breaking it down for children isn't always in their expertise and their skill set. We've seen clear signs in progress of pupils' oracy skills, and we have seen some links of it being drilling being linked to cross-curricular lessons in the Welsh department and the English department. And this is something going forward we're going to be putting in the SDP to push forward next year, because we feel like it's started, but we're on a journey and we want to continue that journey to improve further. And both departments have taken on board bilingual strategies. So the results from listening to learners, this is one of the English department classes. I think it's year 3. So as you can see, in October, these children were scoring 7 out of 22. I think the total score could have been 22. And across the board, their scores have improved. There is an improvement. I was said to the children, because they were like, oh, but I can't see the whole sentence. That's fine. Some children, the improvement was they understood what you were saying, and they knew that they knew how to, they knew what it meant. For some children, it was being able to say yes, no, in Welsh to the answer, or being able to give you a full sentence. So this is the English department results, and the Welsh department results are as great as well. So they've gone, the confidence in the children. This is one from Flwyddyn Dau. So this is where, it's worked well across the board in Key Stage 2 and foundation phase. And then this is the one from Flwyddyn Pedwar. So there's it's definitely had a massive impact on us as a school, and a massive impact on the improvement of children's oracy skills. And yeah, it's something we want to continue. There were some limitations. So some of the limitations I found were the consistency and frequency of drilling. Often it's one of the first things teachers put to one side when something else happens, so the day that it gets left to the side. And I think the consistency needs to continue, and that's something that all teachers agree with. And one of the other limitations, especially in the English department, was the teachers' levels of Welsh and their confidence and their understanding. Although the confidence has improved, some people still really struggle and worry that they're going to get it wrong.